Constantine has a vision of the cross, which I still think was a political thing, but by this sign you will conquer. Well, I think Constantine was smart and said, let's get the Christians on our side so we can beat these guys. But by projecting that image out through a vision, because everybody was having visions then, which were indeed metaphors, but he took it and went with it, and he creates and he creates an empire around of all things, the thing that stands against empires is the cross. I mean, the point of the cross was to say to the Roman Empire, so what? Flesh and spirit coming together again. And I was trying to do Good Friday service. It wasn't getting anywhere, and it was a mess. But when I went to give communion, this Huntington's patient who could barely talk and barely walk actually got up, and I said, well, I'll bring the communion to you. It's Good Friday. And he put his hand up. He said, no. And he walked up to where I was. He took the communion wafer, and he looked at the nurses that were talking, disturbing everything, and he said, this is the body of Christ broken for me. Just as clear as a bell, and took it and ate it. For him and for me, that was a spiritual transforming. The host was both and the nursing all got silent. They just got silent because they had to do extra care for him because the guy hurt himself and all that. They got just totally silent because he understood his own brokenness. Probably his last phase of consciousness over a couple more years. He knew he was losing his consciousness. He was losing his body, but at the very core level, his soul was still engaged. And he's saying, my life is not meaningless. And this symbol of God says, I'm not meaningless. And this moment is sacred. It's the interplay.
In the old days, you were not allowed to touch that place. It had 10,000 volts applied. Only the priest could handle it.
Well, but he
could put it in your mouth?
Huh?
The priest could put it in your mouth?
Yeah.
Had 10,000
You could
volts?
not touch it. You
Right.
could not touch
They
it.
fed you.
You could not touch it. It was too much mana. Too much mana.
Yeah.
I knew it was one of the churches anyway.
And you were convinced at that time, surely.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
Well,
Then Vatican II happened.
Well,
The liberalization.
once they stopped giving it to you in Latin,
Yeah, the Latin has to be totally
everything up.
meaningless.
that's right, that it made all the magic go out of it.
Exactly.
Yeah, but then what you could project into it was so much more healthy. Yeah.
So, Lectori Benevolo, which is the beginning of this book, is a quote-unquote wonderful exposition of the reality of the psyche. Now, part of this I'm getting out of Edinger, right, which is transformation of the God image. So, Edinger is acknowledging that Jung is transforming the God image himself. It first happens with him. And so there are three positions. There's the concretely true, and that worked up until 1500, and then the rational reductive criticism that happened after 1500. And then the third position, which emerges from the two, is the psychic truth, okay, which is psychic truth, which is Jung's position, which is, he says, every religious statement of whatever kind is a statement of the psyche and not a statement of the physical world. It's a psychic fact, not a physical fact. And if that weren't true, they would be in the books of natural science. And when you think about it, and I've thought about it a lot, like in the last 5 years especially, when you think about it, he's got it. That's it. Because, I kept saying, why are these people always pointing at heaven when they make a touchdown? Why are they always pointing up? You know, why aren't they pointing at their hearts, right? Because now we can see back to the Big Bang. We can see all the way back there almost. And we can see down to the small, we can see down to
Is
the,
that faith or no?
pardon? Well, I mean, in the
There's a lot
physical
of faith
world,
involved with that.
in the physical world, there's no
Yeah, I know.
heaven. There's
It's how
no.
we construct it now.
But we don't know fully the oceans, so I question a lot of our
It's just how we map
So
it. now.
so
We
so
don't
is
know what-
is
I
God?
always say,
The oceans.
don't mistake the map for
Oh,
There's
reality.
no-
Yeah,
Total mystery.
yeah. It is still a mystery, but you wouldn't say that God is hidden in a bubble in the ocean, right?
I wouldn't
No,
say.
you know,
Wait.
I heard.
It could.
I don't
You could
discount
develop a whole
anything
religion
anymore.
that way.
Look,
Okay.
you should
But to appreciate the living reality of our actual day-to-day life is quite another matter. It's like a rattlesnake in your pocket. Oh, is that so? Okay. Which is, it's a rattlesnake. You have to seek him for yourself. Thou wilt find him thyself, and it is thee that he hath his origin, in thee.
Yeah.
He says, meditate upon this. Your thoughts, your feelings, your passions, your effects, they're all not yours at all. You don't create them. They come from an unknown source and flow through you. The ego just notices that they have arrived. Same is true of the Holy Scriptures, manifestations of the objective psyche. I'll read it again. Meditate on this, okay, and this is in it so you can pull it up on
I
your
want
computer.
your entry.
Okay, your thoughts, your feelings, your passions, your effects, they're not yours at all. Okay, in other words, when you fall in love, when you have a problem with your anima, okay, when you feel, oh, that's awful to allow an abortion, those are all not yours at all. Those are coming from somewhere else. Okay, you're not thinking those. Okay, and you know, it was like you were saying earlier about the pen. You know, I can't make you believe in this wine glass. Okay, I can't make you believe in this wine glass. Now, I can say this wine glass is the essence of God, and I can say you can sit here for a month and we can talk about it for a month, and there's never ever a moment when you're going to believe in this wine glass as the essence of God, right? Because you can't get there logically. You can only get there by emotion, by feeling. Okay.
Or with filling that multiple times with wine.
He's the devil on my shoulder.
That works. Give me another glass. I think I need another. No. And so
Can we back up a little bit?
when you have a feeling, when you have any emotion, it doesn't come from you. Okay, you don't think it. Okay, it emerges and you notice it. So here's the point that comes up in the Job archetype, which was the archetype that Edinger was talking about in the greater personality, right? And so going back and discussing it, he says first there's the encounter, the ego against the greater power.
Oh, you got that.
My notes are in the Dropbox and they're free to you. And to anybody who has to be in the Dropbox. Okay. So secondly is the wound. Okay, the suffering. So you're suffering because what you thought before isn't right. Okay, and so the third thing is the ego perseveres, and you're searching for the meaning of it. And finally, there's a divine revelation. There's an insight that satisfies the ego and brings acceptance. Okay, now I have a great example for you, which is, think of this in terms of cosmology. Okay, Einstein, Einstein wasn't perfect. Okay, and so Einstein's theories of relativity, general and special, explain things 99.999% of the time, more than that. Okay, it's very close to being 100% true. It might be more than that. It might be 3% off or something, but it's nearly 100% true. But the problem is that, oh, by the way, you encounter the greater power that says, it isn't perfect, right?
That's the probability thing, right?
Well, I mean, Einstein's theory
There's
of
this one little bitty improbability that happens.
equals
throws off
MC
the
square
rule.
isn't perfectly right, okay? Because we don't perfectly know the speed of light, and we don't perfectly,
Know how light is.
yeah, and we don't perfectly know any squat thing about it. Okay, even though scientists have been working on it for 100 years.
Are you saying E equals MC squared is going to need refinement?
I thought a 10-year-old
It
girl
can't
did
be though.
refine it.
It has been refined. It has
Where's
been
that
refined.
wiggle?
Okay,
What are you saying? There
okay.
needs to be a constant in there or something? Or what? I don't know what you mean.
Well, he tried to put a cosmological constant in it
Not
himself.
in E equals MC squared?
Yeah.
Oh,
But even so, it's a math.
I thought that
Right.
was the gravity.
Okay. So anyway, there's this encounter with the greater power between the ego and the greater power, which is the greater power says, screw you. Equals MC squared isn't perfectly right?
The greater power didn't have to say anything.
Okay,
He
so
just
the
flat
second
out
point
wrote.
is
The elusive
that's the
one,
wound,
that's it.
okay? The ego is suffering because he knows that he doesn't have it perfect. He won the Nobel Prize for physics, but it ain't perfect.
See, that's a masculine concern.
That's a masculine concern, okay.
Because the feminine concern would be just how does it establish relationship?
Okay. Meanwhile, the cosmologists recently have discovered that, oh, by the way, we agree there's dark matter and there's dark energy. And oh, by the way, it's, I don't know, something like 90% of the universe. And oh, by the way, we can't explain. So the ego perseveres, right? There's this search for meaning, and then the fourth step is there's divine revelation. Well, okay, some future Einstein or some future 10-year-old girl is going to offer a new divine revelation of what dark
Probably
when
comes from just totally stepping outside of their brain and looking at it from a
Well,
different-
obviously we have to. I mean, when you think about it, just think of the things that we can't explain. Just our cell phones work, right? We have 5 people at this table. Everybody's cell phone is on a different frequency with the tower, right? Anyway, the point is, it only works if you don't take the personalistic or reductive interpretation of step 3. So, in Job's case, if Job had submitted to the advice of the counselors that some way or other he had it coming, that's the short circuit and it prevents step 4. It prevents the divine revelation, right? And so the point is that anybody that's trying to wrestle with this issue of dark energy, right? And all the old professors come in and say, no, E equals MC squared is exactly right. Just go by that and you'll be okay for your career, right? And so don't pay attention to this little bit that isn't quite right.
Plus, dark will never fund you anyway.
And if you do it now, your website will be torn down if you put anything new.
Right, and so, but that's what always happens, isn't it? That's what
you're
always.
saying that life is just a system of dead reckoning, right?
Well, no, I'm saying that it's a system of divine revelation if you don't believe the powers that be.
So are you saying answer to Job for Jung was his seeking divine revelation and
Yeah.
exercising?
And I
Life
think
is
from
a constant revelation. If it's not, you're not living.
that's right, and it's alive if there's constant revelation. And for Jung, this was a major thing, right? I mean, he's coming out of the 19th century, and everybody's feeling, oh, not so good. You know, Christianity isn't quite right. There's something wrong here, and it's a wound, you know. It's an encounter with the fact that God isn't quite the way the church says it is. We're trying to understand ourselves as human beings in the life that we have to live, based on the experience of human beings who were different at that time.